Space began to tear like old fabric as something massive pushed through the dimensional barrier. The hyperspace rift grew larger and larger until it stretched across half the solar system. Reality twisted and bent in ways that made experienced space crews feel sick just looking at it. Emergency alarms screamed across every inhabited world within 100 light-years as sensor networks detected the impossible. Commander Jiwoo Lee stood frozen on the bridge of his Thaxian patrol ship, watching his instruments go completely insane. The numbers scrolling across his screens could not be real. No ship in galactic history had ever generated power readings this high. His chief engineer was frantically checking the sensors, thinking, they must be malfunctioning, but every system gave the same terrifying results. The thing emerging from the rift was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. It stretched over 2,000 kilometers from front to back, making it larger than most space stations. Its hull was black as the void between stars and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapon platforms the size of cities covered its surface like metal mountains, and its engines burned with a cold blue fire that made nearby stars look dim. This was the Steel Phoenix, but it bore no resemblance to the ship that had fled 50 years ago. The original human Supercarrier had been impressive by the standards of that time, but this vessel defied every law of physics and engineering. No known materials could support a structure this large. No power source could drive engines this massive, and no civilization had ever built weapons that radiated this much destructive potential. Lieutenant Min-Soo Park frantically worked at his communications station, trying to make sense of the signals pouring from the massive ship. The humans were broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously, but their message was calm and clear, despite the chaos their arrival had caused. "This is Admiral Sora Park of the Terran Defense Force," the voice said in perfect galactic standard. "We have returned to reclaim what was stolen from us. All alien military vessels have exactly 1 hour to withdraw from former human territory. Any ship remaining after that time will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. We have not forgotten. We have not forgiven. This is your only warning. Commander." Jiwoo felt his heart stop beating. The admiral speaking was the same woman who had commanded the human evacuation 50 years ago, but that was impossible. No human lived that long, and her voice sounded exactly as it had in the old war recordings. Young and strong and filled with quiet fury. The message repeated every few minutes, as more details of the massive ship became visible through their telescopes. What they had initially thought were weapon platforms were actually manufacturing centers. Vast factories were building smaller vessels, even as they watched the humans. Were not just returning with one ship. They were preparing to construct an entire fleet right here in Space Captain. Min-Ho Choi commanded the fastest courier ship in the sector and had been ordered by Fleet Command to approach the human vessel and gather intelligence. His small ship felt like a tiny insect next to the Steel Phoenix as he carefully maneuvered closer. The Supercarrier was so large it had its own gravitational field, and his navigation system struggled to compensate through his viewports. Captain Min-Ho could see human activity on the ship's surface. Figures in advanced spacesuits moved with impossible grace across the hull, performing tasks he could not understand. Their suits seemed to be part machine and part living, tissue pulsing with internal light and responding to thought rather than manual controls. These were not the same humans who had fled the galaxy decades ago. Smaller human ships began emerging from launch bays that opened like flower petals. Each vessel was the size of a traditional alien battleship, but moved through space like living creatures. Their hulls bore markings that seemed to shift and change when looked at directly, and their engines left trails of energy that bent light around them. The hour deadline was approaching, and most alien ships in the area were already fleeing toward hyperspace jump points. But a few battle groups remained. Their commanders were either too proud or too stupid to retreat from what they saw as a single enemy vessel, no matter how large. Admiral Hyun-sik Nam of the Velkari Imperial Fleet was one of those who chose to stay. His 50-ship battle group took up attack positions around the Steel Phoenix at what military doctrine considered a safe engagement distance. Admiral Hyun-sik had fought humans during the original war and remembered them as clever but ultimately weak opponents who relied on desperate tactics when facing superior force. This new ship might be impressively large, but size meant nothing against proven tactics and overwhelming numbers. All ships prepared to engage. Admiral Hyun-sik ordered over the fleet communication network. Target their weapon systems first, then their engines. We will disable this vessel and capture it intact for study. Their technology will make the Empire unstoppable. The Velkari fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids launched streams of superheated matter toward the human ship missile. Swarms that had destroyed entire human colonies during the war raced through space, carrying enough explosive power to crack a moon. Energy beams that had once broken Earth's orbital defenses lanced out with surgical precision. The combined firepower of 50 advanced warships struck the Steel Phoenix simultaneously. It was enough destructive force to vaporize any known vessel in seconds and leave nothing but glowing debris. The alien crews watched their tactical displays, expecting to see the massive human ship break apart under the devastating assault, but nothing happened. The human vessel continued its steady course without even slowing down. The alien weapons simply vanished when they came into contact with the Steel Phoenix's defensive barriers, not deflected or absorbed, but erased from existence as if they had never been fired. The Supercarrier ignored the alien fleet like they were annoying insects. Lieutenant Yoon-ji Song monitored the tactical situation from her position aboard the Steel Phoenix. She had been born during the long exile in dimensional space and raised on stories of the galaxy that had tried to destroy her people. Now she was finally seeing those enemies with her own eyes and found them disappointingly primitive. Their weapons were exactly what the historical records had predicted: simple energy projection and kinetic impact systems that any first-year physics student could counter. Their ships were slow and clumsy, relying on brute force rather than elegant engineering. Most pathetic of all was their tactical thinking, which had not evolved at all during the 50 years since humanity's departure. Admiral Park, the Velkari fleet is requesting permission to withdraw, Lieutenant Yoon-ji reported. To the command center. Should we allow them to leave? Admiral Sora Park studied the alien vessels on her holographic display. These were the same ship designs that had bombed human colonies and murdered human children during the war. She had spent 500 subjective years planning for this moment, dreaming of the day when she could face her people's killers with superior force. Negative, she replied with cold calm. Begin the demonstration. The Steel Phoenix's main weapon systems activated, for the first time since emerging from dimensional space. These were not the simple projectile weapons or energy beams that the galaxy knew. Human technology had evolved far beyond such primitive concepts during their long exile. The Supercarriers. Weapons reached into the fundamental forces of reality itself and rewrote the basic laws of physics in small, localized areas. Admiral Hyun-sik watched in growing horror as his ships began to disappear. One by one, the vessels of his proud fleet simply stopped existing, not destroyed or exploded, but edited out of reality as if they had never been built. The process was silent and clean, leaving nothing behind but empty space and scattered atoms. In less than 30 seconds, 49 of the Empire's finest warships had been reduced to cosmic dust. Only Admiral Hyun-sik's flagship remained deliberately spared so he could carry word back to his government. The message was unmistakably clear. Humanity had returned, and they possessed weapons that could erase matter from existence itself. The Steel Phoenix continued toward the former human colonies, while smaller human vessels spread out to secure key positions throughout the sector. The age of alien dominance was ending, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Hyun-sik Nam sat alone in his command chair, staring at the empty space where his fleet had been just moments before. 49 of the Velkari Empire's most advanced warships had simply ceased to exist, erased from reality by weapons that defied every known law of physics. His tactical officer kept running sensor sweeps of the area but found nothing, not even debris or energy signatures remained. The human supercarrier, Steel Phoenix, continued its steady advance toward the former human colonies, completely ignoring the lone Velkari flagship that had been spared. Its massive bulk moved through space with impossible grace for something so large, and Admiral Hyun-sik could see smaller human vessels emerging from its launch bays like a swarm of deadly insects. Communications officer, send an immediate message to Imperial Command. Admiral Hyun-sik ordered, his voice hollow with shock. Tell them the humans have returned, and they possess weapons beyond our understanding. Request immediate reinforcement of all border systems and evacuation of non-essential personnel. But even as he gave the orders, Admiral Hyun-sik knew it was too late. Whatever the humans had become during their 50-year exile, they were no longer the weak, desperate refugees who had fled the galaxy. The Steel Phoenix alone could probably destroy the entire Imperial fleet, and there was no telling how many other human ships were hidden in dimensional space, waiting to emerge. Lieutenant Colonel Yejin Kang commanded the Thaxian science vessel, Deep Explorer, and had been monitoring the confrontation from a safe distance. Her ship's advanced sensors had recorded every detail of the weapon discharge that had eliminated the Velkari fleet. The data was terrifying and impossible in equal measure. The humans were not using conventional weapons at all. Instead, they had somehow learned to manipulate the basic structure of reality itself. Their defensive systems did not block incoming attacks, but prevented them from ever having occurred in the first place. Their offensive weapons did not destroy matter, but edited it out of existence entirely. Colonel Yejin had spent her entire career studying advanced physics and thought she understood the fundamental laws that governed the universe. But the human technology violated everything she knew about how reality was supposed to work. It was as if they had discovered a way to rewrite the cosmic operating system and change the rules that applied to everyone. Else, we need to warn the Council. She told her science officer, Lieutenant Jun-ho Kim, download all sensor data and prepare for immediate hyperspace jump to the capital. The galaxy needs to know what we are facing. Meanwhile, on worlds throughout human, space alien military commanders were receiving the same ultimatum that Admiral Hyun-sik had heard. Withdraw immediately from former human territory, or be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Most chose to evacuate their forces as quickly as possible, but a few stubborn officers decided to make a stand. Colonel Min-jun Park commanded the Thaxian garrison on New Busan, a former human mining world that had been under alien control for 50 years. He had 2,000 soldiers under his command and enough defensive weapons to hold off a conventional assault. The planet's population of alien colonists looked to him for protection, and he was not about to abandon them to human revenge. The Steel Phoenix sent a small escort vessel to deliver the evacuation order in person. The human ship landed in the main spaceport, and a delegation emerged wearing advanced environmental suits that seemed to be part machine and part living tissue. Their leader removed her helmet, revealing a human face that looked exactly like the old war records despite 50 years having passed. "I am Captain Subin Park of the Terran Recovery Force," she announced in fluent Thaxian. "You have 1 hour to begin evacuation procedures. Any military personnel or equipment remaining after that time will be removed by force. All civilian colonists who wish to remain may do so under human administration." Colonel Min-jun studied the human captain with professional interest. She appeared to be in her 30s, but her eyes held knowledge that seemed far older. Her environmental suit responded to her thoughts rather than manual controls and displayed information directly on its surface in languages that shifted based on who was looking at it. This world belongs to the Thaxian Republic by right of conquest. Colonel Min-jun replied, "We will not abandon our people to human retaliation. Your species lost the right to these territories when you fled like cowards. 50 years ago." Captain Subin smiled. Sadly, as if she had expected this response, "I was 7 years old when we fled, Colonel. My family died in the bombardment of Seoul Station, along with 40,000 other civilians. We did not flee like cowards. We withdrew to prepare for our return, and now we have come home." The negotiations continued for exactly 1 hour, with Colonel Min-jun refusing to budge from his position. When the deadline expired, Captain Subin simply nodded to her companions and returned to her ship. The human vessel lifted off and moved to a safe distance before beginning whatever process they used instead of conventional weapons. Colonel Min-jun watched from his command bunker as reality began to change around the military installations. His defensive weapons simply faded out of existence as if they had never been built. His soldiers found their equipment becoming insubstantial until they were holding empty air instead of weapons. Even the concrete bunkers began to dissolve as the humans edited them out of reality. Within minutes, the entire Thaxian military presence on New Busan had been quietly erased, leaving nothing but empty ground where fortifications had stood. The process was so clean and precise that not a single civilian was harmed. The human ship landed again, and Captain Subin emerged to address the confused alien colonists. "You are welcome to remain under human administration," she announced, "or we will provide transportation to any Thaxian world you choose. We bear no grudge against civilians who were simply trying to build new lives." The war was between governments, not peoples. Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds as human forces systematically reclaimed their former territories. The aliens had expected brutal revenge for the atrocities committed during the original war. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that had evolved beyond the need for crude violence. The humans simply erased military opposition and offered civilian populations a choice between integration or relocation. News of these impossible victories spread throughout the galaxy faster than light-speed communications could carry official reports. Civilian traffic networks buzzed with rumors and eyewitness accounts of human technology that seemed like magic. Alien governments called emergency sessions to discuss this unprecedented threat, but no one had any idea how to respond. President Taemin Park of the Galactic Council received hourly updates from intelligence services across known space. Every report painted the same terrifying picture. The humans had returned with technology that made the galaxy's most advanced weapons look like primitive tools. Their ships could appear anywhere instantly through dimensional manipulation. Their weapons could erase matter from existence, and their defenses could prevent attacks from ever happening. "The Council must unite against this threat," President Taemin declared to his emergency cabinet. "We cannot allow one species to dominate the galaxy, no matter how advanced their technology has become." But privately, he wondered if it was already too late. The humans had spent 50 years preparing for this return and seemed to have anticipated every possible response. Their technology was so far beyond galactic norms that conventional military thinking no longer applied. It was like trying to fight gods with stone knives and wooden spears. Admiral Sora Park stood on the observation deck of the Steel Phoenix watching the planet Earth grow larger in the viewports. The homeworld was still scarred from the alien occupation, but human terraforming technology was already beginning the healing process. New forests were growing in perfect geometric patterns, and the oceans were being restocked with species that had been extinct for decades. 50 years, she whispered to herself. 50 years of planning and preparation and dreaming of this moment. Her aide, Lieutenant Commander Dong-Hyun Park, approached with the latest status reports. Admiral, all major human colonies have been secured. The alien military forces have withdrawn or been eliminated. Civilian populations are adapting to the transition better than expected. Most seem relieved that we are not seeking revenge against non-combatants. Admiral Sora nodded approvingly. That had always been the plan. Humanity would reclaim what was theirs. But they would not repeat the mistakes their enemies had made. The galaxy had tried to destroy them through brutality and oppression. The humans would succeed through superiority and precision. Phase 1 is complete. She announced to the bridge crew. Begin Phase 2. Activate the construction protocols and deploy the terraform systems. It is time to show the galaxy what humanity has truly become. Across human space, massive factories began emerging from dimensional storage compartments hidden throughout the Steel Phoenix and its escort vessels. The humans were not just reclaiming their old territories. They were preparing to rebuild their civilization using technology that would reshape entire worlds in a matter of months. The galaxy was about to discover that the human exile had not weakened them. It had forged them into something far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of receiving Admiral Hyun-Sik's report, but already it felt too late. Representatives from 37 major species filled the Great Assembly Hall on Concordia Prime, their voices rising in panic and confusion as they tried to make sense of what had happened. President Taemin Park called for order as holographic displays showed the latest intelligence reports from human space. The footage was grainy and shaken, but clear enough to see impossible things happening. Alien warships simply ceasing to exist without explosions or debris. Human vessels moving through space like living creatures and weapons that seemed to rewrite the laws of physics themselves. This cannot be real, declared Ambassador Woo Sung Kim of the Draconian Hegemony. No species can develop such technology in a mere 50 years. The humans were barely more advanced than primitives when they fled. Our scientists estimate it would take thousands of years to achieve what these recordings suggest. But the evidence was undeniable. Every intelligence service in the galaxy was reporting the same impossible facts. The humans had returned with technology that defied understanding. Their weapons did not destroy matter, but removed it from existence entirely. Their ships could travel through dimensions that did not appear on any known maps. Senator Ji-Young Lee of the Arachnid Collective had been studying the energy readings from human space. Her analysis painted a picture that made the assembled representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. The humans were not just using advanced technology. They had somehow learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that held reality together. "Are not facing an enemy. We can defeat through conventional warfare," she explained to the silent assembly. "Their defensive systems do not block our attacks, but prevent them from occurring in the first place. Their offensive capabilities can edit matter out of existence. Their ships exist partially outside normal space-time." The implications were staggering. If the humans could manipulate reality itself, then every advantage the galaxy had built over millennia meant nothing. Fleet superiority became meaningless when enemy ships could appear anywhere instantly. Defensive positions were useless against weapons that could erase them from existence. Numerical superiority counted for nothing when one human vessel could eliminate entire fleets. General Ha-Young Kim of the Velkari Imperial Military stood to address the assembly. Her species had lost the most ships to human weapons, and she spoke with the authority of someone who had seen the impossible happen firsthand. "We must act quickly before they can consolidate their position," she declared. "The humans currently control only their former territories, but intelligence suggests they are building new vessels at an unprecedented rate. Every day we delay gives them more time to strengthen their forces." But what could the galaxy do against an enemy that could rewrite reality? President Tae-min had been receiving reports from his military advisors, and none of them offered any hope of conventional victory. The humans had leapfrogged every known technology by thousands of years. Evolution that should have taken civilizations millennia to achieve had somehow been compressed into 5 decades of exile. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sung-min Park was a theoretical physicist from the Centauri Research Institute who had been studying dimensional mechanics for his entire career. He believed he understood what had happened to the humans during their long absence from the galaxy. They did not spend 50 years. In normal space, he explained to the assembled representatives, the energy signatures from their ships suggest prolonged exposure to accelerated temporal fields. My calculations indicate they experienced time dilation on a massive scale. What was 50 years for us may have been centuries for them. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. If the humans had experienced hundreds of years while the galaxy aged only 50, then their technological advancement made terrible sense. They had not achieved impossible evolution in 5 decades. They had been given centuries to develop weapons that could challenge the fundamental nature of reality itself. This changes everything, Senator Ji Young whispered. 500 years of research and development compressed into what we thought was a brief exile. No wonder their technology seems like magic to us. But understanding the source of human advancement did not solve the problem of how to fight them. The galaxy still faced an enemy, with weapons that could erase matter from existence and defenses that could prevent attacks from ever happening. The assembled representatives began discussing increasingly desperate options. Some suggested immediate surrender and negotiation. Others proposed evacuating key worlds and abandoning human space entirely. A few extremist voices called for using forbidden weapons that had been banned since the Great Wars of the early Galactic Age. But every option seemed to lead to the same conclusion. Galaxy was facing an enemy it could not defeat through conventional means. Captain Yuri Kim had volunteered for what many considered a suicide mission. Leading a small diplomatic vessel, she approached the Steel Phoenix under a flag of truce broadcasting messages of peace and requesting negotiations. Her ship was tiny compared to the massive human supercarrier, but she hoped her willingness to come alone would demonstrate good faith. The human ship allowed her to approach and even opened a communication channel. The face that appeared on her screen was unmistakably Admiral So-Ra Park, the same woman who had led the human evacuation 50 years ago. She looked exactly as she had in the old recordings, despite the passage of time. "I know you, Admiral," Park said before Captain Yuri could speak. "Your grandfather commanded the 3rd Thaxian Fleet during the bombardment of New Sol. 40,000 civilians died in that attack, including my sister and her 3 children. Did you think I would forget such things?" Captain Yuri felt her blood turn cold as she realized the humans had not just preserved their technology during the long exile, they had maintained detailed records of every crime committed against their people, every atrocity, every massacre. Every act of genocide had been carefully documented and remembered. "We seek peace, Admiral," she managed to say. "The galaxy has changed since those dark times. We can build a better future together if the communication channel went dead." Captain Yuri's ship was gently but firmly escorted away from the Steel Phoenix by human vessels that moved through space like schools of fish. Their hulls bore markings that seemed to shift and change when looked at directly, and their engines left trails that bent light around them as her ship retreated to a safe distance. Captain Yuri realized the terrible truth. The humans had not spent their exile simply developing new weapons. They had used those centuries to remember every injustice, catalog every crime, and plan the perfect revenge. The galaxy would pay for what it had done, and payment would be extracted with precision that only centuries of planning could achieve. Meanwhile, the desperate alliance of alien governments was mobilizing. The largest military force in galactic history, over 10,000 ships from 24 species were gathering at the edge of former human space, armed with weapons that could sterilize planets and defended by shields that could withstand supernovas. The combined fleet represented the absolute pinnacle of galactic military might. Admiral Woojin Lee commanded the Thaxian contingent, while General Ha-Young Kim led the Velkari forces. Ancient enemies had put aside centuries of rivalry to face what they saw as an extinction-level threat. Every major power had contributed their finest vessels and most experienced crews. The plan was simple in concept. If impossible in execution, they would overwhelm the human forces through sheer numbers and firepower. Even weapons that could manipulate reality had to have limits, and no single ship could withstand the concentrated assault of 10,000 vessels. But as the Great Fleet took up positions at the hyperspace jump point, Admiral Wu Jin found himself thinking about the reports from human space. The Steel Phoenix was not just a warship, but a mobile civilization capable of building entire fleets in a matter of days, and intelligence suggested it was not alone. How many human ships were hiding in dimensional space waiting to emerge? How advanced had their technology become during 500 years of development? And most terrifying of all, what did they plan to do with the galaxy once they had reclaimed it? The answers to those questions would determine whether any of the assembled alien species would survive the coming battle. The humans had returned, and they had brought with them weapons that could reshape reality itself. The galaxy's response would be its last desperate gamble against an enemy that had evolved beyond the need for mercy or forgiveness. Time was running out, and the Steel Phoenix was already moving toward the final confrontation. The assembled alien fleet stretched across 3 light-years of space, representing the largest military force in galactic history. Over 10,000 warships from 24 different species floated in perfect formation, their combined firepower, enough to crack moons and their defensive systems capable of withstanding the fury of dying. Stars, Admiral Woojin Lee stood on the bridge of the Thaxian flagship Eternal Glory, studying the tactical displays that showed every vessel in the vast Armada veteran crews from a dozen conflicts-manned ships that represented thousands of years of military engineering and tactical evolution. Never before had so many traditional enemies worked together toward a common goal. This is not about conquest or territory, Admiral Wu Jin broadcast to the entire fleet. This is about survival. The humans have returned with technology. We cannot understand and power we cannot match. Our only hope is to show them that the galaxy will not surrender without extracting a terrible price. General Ha-Young Kim commanded the Velkari contingent from her flagship Iron Vengeance. Her species had suffered the most casualties from human weapons, and she spoke for many when she declared that retreat was no longer an option. The humans had to be stopped here, or every world in the galaxy would fall under their control. But even as the Great Fleet prepared for battle, doubts gnawed at the minds of experienced commanders. The reports from human space painted a picture of technology so advanced it seemed like magic weapons that could erase matter from existence, defenses that prevented attacks from ever happening, ships that could travel through dimensions that did not exist on any known charts captain. Subin Park monitored the alien fleet from her position aboard the human escort vessel, Dancing Star. She had been just a child when her people fled into exile, but now she was returning as part of a force that could reshape reality itself. The irony was not lost on her that many of the species arrayed against them had once dismissed humans as too weak to be worth conquering completely. The Dancing Star was one of 50 human vessels accompanying the Steel Phoenix, and each one represented a quantum leap beyond anything the galaxy had previously seen. Their hulls were constructed from materials that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their engines drew power from sources that tapped directly into the fundamental forces of creation, "We are detecting massive hyperspace disturbances," reported Lieutenant Dong-Min Kim from his sensor station. The Steel Phoenix is approaching along with the entire human fleet. The alien commanders had expected this moment for days, but seeing it happen still sent chills through experienced veterans. Space itself began to ripple and bend as the human ships emerged from dimensional transit. The Steel Phoenix materialized first, its massive bulk causing nearby stars to flicker as gravitational fields adjusted to its presence. Following the Supercarrier came dozens of smaller human vessels, each one moving through space with organic fluidity that made them appear alive. Their formations shifted and flowed like schools of fish, responding to currents that only they could sense. Most disturbing of all were the humans themselves, visible through transparent sections of their ships. They had changed during their long exile. Their bodies showed enhancements that blurred the line between organic tissue and advanced technology. Their eyes glowed with inner light, and their movements had a precision that seemed supernatural. These were not the desperate refugees who had fled the galaxy 50 years ago. Admiral Sora Park stood on the command deck of the Steel Phoenix, studying the alien fleet through displays that showed information in spectrums beyond normal perception. 500 years of subjective time had passed since she had last faced an enemy fleet, but the memory of those final desperate battles was as fresh as yesterday. "They still think in terms of conventional warfare," she observed to her staff. "Look at their formations. They are trying to apply tactics designed for normal weapons against forces they cannot comprehend." The alien fleet opened fire the moment the two forces came within weapons range. 10,000 ships unleashed their fury simultaneously, creating a storm of destruction that should have overwhelmed any enemy through sheer volume. The combined firepower could have shattered planets and turned entire solar systems into glowing debris fields. Plasma cannons that had reduced human colonies to ash during the original war sent streams of superheated matter racing across. Space missile swarms carrying enough explosive power to crack moons followed trajectories calculated by the finest military computers. Energy beams precise enough to target individual hull plates lanced out with the accumulated fury of a dozen species, but the human response defied every expectation and violated every known law of physics. The Steel Phoenix and its escorts did not raise shields or return fire. Instead, they simply changed the fundamental rules that govern the battlefield. Where alien weapons should have struck armor, they found only empty space. Where explosions should have occurred, there was only silence. The humans were not blocking or deflecting the attacks. They were preventing them from ever having happened in the first place. Reality itself bent to their will as they rewrote the basic laws of cause and effect in localized areas. The alien weapons simply ceased to exist the moment they came within range of human defensive systems. Admiral Wu Jin watched in growing horror as his carefully planned assault produced no results whatsoever. His weapons were not being defeated, they were being edited out of existence before they could reach their targets. The tactical displays showed energy readings that made no sense and attack patterns that violated everything he understood about space combat. "How do we fight an enemy that can change the rules of reality itself?" he whispered to his tactical officer. The answer came in the form of the human counterattack. The Steel Phoenix activated weapon systems that reached across space and time to touch the alien vessels with forces that existed beyond normal physics. These were not the crude energy beams or kinetic projectiles that galactic civilization knew. Human technology had evolved into something that could manipulate the fundamental structure of existence itself. One by one, the alien ships began to disappear, not destroyed or damaged, but simply edited out of reality as if they had never been constructed. The process was clean and silent, leaving no debris or energy signatures behind. In less than an hour, 10,000 warships representing the pinnacle of galactic military might had been reduced to empty space and scattered atoms. Only a handful of Vessels survived deliberately spared to carry word of humanity's overwhelming victory back to their governments. Admiral Wu Jin found himself commanding one of those survivors, watching helplessly as his proud fleet was systematically erased from existence. The message was unmistakable. Resistance was not just futile, but meaningless. The humans possessed technology that could rewrite reality itself, and no conventional force could stand against them. The age of alien dominance was ending, and there was nothing the galaxy could do to stop it. Captain Subin Park observed the aftermath of the battle from her position aboard the Dancing Star. The alien survivors were fleeing toward hyperspace jump points, broadcasting surrender signals and requests for mercy. It had been a decisive victory, achieved without losing a single human vessel or suffering any casualties, but she felt no satisfaction in the triumph. These aliens had been responsible for the deaths of her family and the exile of her people. But the revenge felt hollow now that it was complete. 500 years of preparation had led to this moment, and now it was over. The galaxy belonged to humanity, and the long exile was finally at an end. Admiral Sora Park stood alone on the observation deck of the Steel Phoenix, watching the retreating alien ships disappear into hyperspace. The Great War that had begun 50 years ago was finally over, and humanity had emerged victorious. But victory brought its own responsibilities. Phase 3 is authorized, she announced to her staff. Begin planetary reconstruction and civilian integration protocols. The galaxy belongs to us now, and we must decide what kind of civilization we want to build in the ashes of the old order across human. Space construction ships began emerging from dimensional storage to begin the work of rebuilding. The humans had not returned simply to reclaim what was theirs. They had come home to create something better than what had existed before. The galaxy would be reformed according to human principles, and the age of chaos and warfare would finally come to an end. But first, there was the matter of dealing with the surviving alien governments. Some would choose to surrender and accept integration. Into the new order, others would flee to the outer rim and try to rebuild their shattered fleets. Either way, the outcome was inevitable. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. 6 months after the return of the Steel Phoenix, the galaxy had been transformed beyond recognition. Former human colonies bustled with activity as massive construction projects reshaped entire worlds using technology that seemed like pure magic. To the remaining alien populations, cities grew from the ground up in perfect geometric patterns, while terraforming systems restored damaged ecosystems in a matter of weeks. Governor Jisoo Kim stood on the observation platform overlooking New Seoul, watching as the colony that had been destroyed during the original war rose from its ashes. The new human architecture existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, with buildings that were larger inside than outside, and transport systems that moved people through folded space. The reconstruction was not simply about rebuilding what had been lost. The humans had spent 500 years of subjective time perfecting technologies that made their previous achievements look primitive. New. Seoul was being constructed as a showcase of what human civilization could accomplish when freed from the constraints of conventional physics. Captain Dong-Hyun Park served as colonial administrator for the Kepler sector and often marveled at how completely the balance of power had shifted. The same alien species that had once hunted humans for sport now begged for the privilege of working in human colonies. Their advanced technology, which had seemed so superior 50 years ago, was now obsolete compared to what humanity had learned during exile. Most alien governments had chosen complete surrender rather than face annihilation by weapons they could not understand. The Velkari Empire dissolved itself and requested integration into the human administration. The Thaxian Republic abandoned their outer colonies and retreated to a small reservation of worlds under human oversight. Even the proud draconian hegemony had bent the knee after witnessing what happened to species that chose continued resistance. The few governments that refused to surrender found themselves confined to distant sectors of space far from any strategic resources. Human patrol ships monitored their movements through dimensional scanners that could detect vessels across multiple galaxies. Their weapons were confiscated, and their ability to expand beyond designated boundaries was permanently eliminated. Lieutenant Commander Su-Young Lee commanded one of the human patrol vessels responsible for monitoring the Arachnid Collective in their assigned reservation. The spider-like aliens had been among the most vicious enemies during the original war, but now they seemed pathetically weak, huddled in their remaining worlds like insects waiting to be crushed. "We are detecting unauthorized movement from the Arachnid home system," her sensor operator reported. "A small fleet is attempting to establish a colony beyond their permitted boundaries." Lieutenant Commander Su-Young studied the tactical display showing 36 alien ships heading toward an uninhabited star system. The vessels were primitive by human standards, barely more advanced than the technology that had existed before the Great War. Their crews probably believed they could establish a secret base without human detection. "Intercept course," she ordered. "Activate the dimensional fold drive and prepare for non-lethal intervention." Her ship, the Silver Wind, folded space around itself and materialized directly in front of the fleeing alien fleet. The Arachnid vessels immediately went to full alert, but their weapons were pathetically ineffective against human defensive systems. Their plasma cannons and missile launchers might as well have been throwing rocks. "This is Lieutenant Commander Su-Young Lee of the Terran Patrol Service," she broadcast to the alien ships. "You are in violation of the territorial restrictions placed upon your species. Return to your designated space immediately or face consequences." The Arachnid fleet commander responded with the kind of defiant rhetoric that had been common during the war, claiming that the morning sun cast long shadows across the command deck of the Velkari battleship as Captain Dae-Ho Kim stared out at the empty space before him. His ship, the Iron Claw, had been patrolling this sector for 3 months now, and every day brought the same disappointing results. Nothing but dead space stations and abandoned mining platforms floated in the darkness like metal ghosts. 50 years had passed since the humans vanished from the galaxy, and most people had forgotten they ever existed. The Great War that drove them away was now just a footnote in history books. Captain Dae-Ho remembered his grandfather telling stories about the human colonies back when he was just a small child. Those were different times when humans still controlled dozens of worlds and thought they could compete with the superior alien races. The humans had been weak creatures, really. Much smaller than the mighty Velkari warriors and lacking the natural armor that protected most civilized species. They relied too heavily on their primitive technology and their strange habit of working together in large groups. The galaxy had tried to be patient with them, at first offering them small roles in the greater cosmic order, but humans were stubborn and proud. They wanted to keep their independence, even when it was clear they could not survive alone. So the Great Alliance was formed. The Velkari Empire joined with the Thaxian Republic and 17 other major powers to teach the humans their proper place in the universe. It should have been a quick lesson. The combined alien fleets outnumbered human ships by more than 100 to 1. Their weapons were more advanced, their soldiers more experienced, and their resolve unshakable. But the humans had surprised everyone. They fought with a desperate fury that no one expected. Small human ships would ram into massive alien battleships, sacrificing themselves to create openings for their allies. Human soldiers would hold impossible positions against overwhelming odds, buying time for civilians to escape. And when defeat became certain, the humans did something no one thought possible. They ran away. Not just a few ships or a single fleet, but their entire civilization packed up and disappeared into the unknown regions of space. The last human transmission came from a massive ship called the Steel Phoenix, a supercarrier that dwarfed anything the aliens had ever built. It jumped into hyperspace carrying millions of human refugees and was never seen again. At first, the alien government searched for them. It would not do to have humans hiding somewhere in the galaxy, plotting revenge or building secret weapons. But after years of searching empty systems and finding nothing, the hunt was called off. The humans were declared extinct, and their former territories were divided among the victorious powers. The Velkari Empire claimed most of the former human colonies, along with Earth itself. The Thaxian Republic took control of the mining worlds and industrial stations, while smaller powers received whatever scraps remained. It was a fair division that satisfied everyone. The galaxy could finally move forward without the troublesome humans causing problems. Captain Day-Ho turned away from the viewport and walked to his command chair. His crew was running another scan of the nearby asteroid belt, looking for any valuable materials the humans might have left behind. Most of the easy pickings had been found years ago, but sometimes they still discovered hidden caches of rare metals or abandoned technology. Lieutenant So-Jin Han looked up from her sensor station with an expression of mild interest. "Captain, we are detecting something unusual in Sector 7. It appears to be an old human data cache hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, Captain." Day-Ho nodded approvingly. Any discovery was better than another empty day of patrol. "Bring us closer, Lieutenant. Let us see what secrets the humans left for us." The Iron Claw changed course toward the asteroid field, its powerful engines cutting through space with practiced efficiency. The crew had done this hundreds of times before. Most human caches contained nothing more than personal belongings or outdated technical manuals. But occasionally, they found something valuable enough to make the search worthwhile. As they approached the target asteroid, Captain Day-Ho noticed something carved into its surface. Human writing was still visible after all these years worn, but readable. The message was simple and direct. "We will return," it said in the blocky letters humans favored. The captain laughed softly. Humans and their empty threats. Even in defeat, they could not accept reality. They were gone forever, scattered to the cosmic winds or dead in some distant corner of space. These messages were just the desperate hopes of a dying species. The boarding team secured the data cache within an hour. Most of the information was exactly what they expected. Personal logs family, photos and technical specifications for outdated human equipment. But buried deep in the files, they found something more interesting. Strategic reports from the final days of the war. Captain Day-Ho read through the documents with growing fascination. The humans had been far more organized in their retreat than anyone realized. Their evacuation was not a panicked flight, but a carefully planned operation. Years of preparation had gone into building the Steel Phoenix and loading it with everything needed to rebuild their civilization elsewhere. According to the reports, the Supercarrier had been equipped with advanced manufacturing systems, genetic banks containing samples from Earth, and enough supplies to sustain millions of people for decades. The humans had not simply run away. They had been preparing for a long journey to somewhere beyond the reach of alien fleets. But where could they have gone? The galaxy was vast, but not infinite. Long-range sensors could detect ships across hundreds of light years, and hyperspace travel left traces that could be followed for months. The fact that no one had ever found any sign of the Steel Phoenix meant only one thing. The humans were dead. Lieutenant So-Jin interrupted his thoughts. "Captain, we are receiving a priority transmission from Fleet Command." The holographic display activated, showing the stern face of Admiral Hyunwoo Park, commander of the 3rd Velkari Fleet. His expression was grim as he began speaking. "All patrol vessels are ordered to return to base immediately. We have received reports of unusual hyperspace disturbances in the outer rim. Something large is moving through the dimensional barriers." Captain Day-Ho felt a chill run down his spine. Hyperspace disturbances were not uncommon, but something large enough to affect multiple sectors was different. The only ships capable of creating such disruptions were massive vessels like the old human Supercarrier, but that was impossible. The Steel Phoenix had been. "Gone for 50 years, Admiral. We are detecting similar disturbances in our current sector." Lieutenant So Jin reported, her voice tight with concern. "The readings are unlike anything in our databases. The energy signature is massive and getting stronger. Show me," Captain Dae-ho ordered, moving to the sensor station. The display revealed a pattern of ripples spreading through hyperspace like waves on a pond. Something enormous was pushing through the dimensional barriers, causing reality itself to bend and flex. The energy readings were off the scale, far beyond anything their instruments were designed to measure. Captain Dae-ho stared at the data, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. He had studied human technology as a hobby during his academy days. Their hyperspace drives had been primitive compared to modern alien systems, but they produced a distinctive energy signature, and buried deep in these massive readings, he could detect traces of that same signature amplified 1,000 times. Over. The Steel Phoenix was coming home, but that was impossible. The ship that left 50 years ago had been impressive for human standards, but nothing compared to modern alien vessels. Even if it had survived the intervening decades, it could not possibly generate energy readings this massive. Something had changed during the long years of exile, something that made the returning human ship far more dangerous than the one that had fled. Captain Dae-ho returned to his command chair and began issuing orders. "All hands to battle stations. Raise shields and charge weapons. Lieutenant Han, send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them the humans are returning and we may need reinforcements as the Iron Claw prepared for whatever was coming." Captain Dae-ho found himself thinking about those carved messages the humans had left behind. "We will return," they had promised. And now, after 50 years of silence, that promise was finally being kept. The question was, what had the humans become during their long exile in the darkness between stars?